Once again, a woman's left unsatisfied.
And with that comment from Eve, hi, this is Cupcake Trap, back for the second featured match of November 4th, 27 CLE. This is a Bilgewater versus Demacia melee match. So this weekend we're taking a break from the Shadow Isles versus the Freljord to give all the other factions a chance to scrap with each other on the fields. And this second match is between Bilgewater and Demacia. The story here is that a Demacian ship was sailing from Nyroth and sank, or began to sink. And the Mirai rescued the ship, but then said, okay, well, since we saved it, rather than letting it sink and plundering the wreckage, we think it's only fair that we get a share of its cargo, which happened to be not only a lot of gold and gems and so forth, but also, crucially, some valuable and, as Demacia would surely point out, dangerous artifacts. So it turned into a scrap on the fields here. Bilgewater and Demacia are two factions that have each done quite well in previous arcs. I think, actually they're both pretty strong, and I suppose part of the idea of these melee matches is to just see how they stack up. Bilgewater was quite dominant in Nyroth, for example, although it actually ultimately lost to Ionia at the last minute, but until then it was just dominating. Demacia has done well in the past. It won the second arc, Ceruleana, way back when. Bilgewater wasn't in that one. It recently defeated Ionia in Black Winter. Let's see, what else did Demacia do well? And then back to Bilgewater. They did well in Divinity, although they lost to Bandle City. And let's see, other big Bilgewater performances. Yeah, pretty much that. So yeah, I guess I'd say they're both strong factions. In terms of their comps, Demacia is famously, shall we say, thematic. They are very much an aggressive, all-in, kind of simple early mid-game teamfight comp. Although, as I say that, I noticed that they're deciding to be a little bit avant-garde and take Quinn and Valor in addition to Vayne. So that's a double ADC composition. That, I think, will definitely help them scale into the late game if they make it there. And it probably is also going to mean they're going to be a bit less tanky. Meanwhile, Bilgewater. What would I say Bilgewater's gameplay theme is? They're versatile, really. They have a pretty standard comp. I'm trying to think of what. I guess they have perhaps a bit more flexibility than some factions.
It's just business.
But yeah, nothing immediately comes to mind other than that they do very well. Not a lot of big gaps. Like Demacia, for example, is a bit lacking in mids, for instance. Demacia bringing out the Leona. Deciding to go for more aggression, very Demacian. I think their other main choice on the roster would be Sona. Bilgewater is matching their double ADC move. We've got both Graves and Misfortune. This is getting interesting. Going to see a lot of Thornmail bot this game. I also want to point out that right now, well, Demacia does have Leona, but I'm guessing they're going to take Jarvan jungle. I mean, you kind of have to bring Jarvan. Otherwise it's, he's their crown prince. But looks like the prince will be sitting this one out, instead sending faithful bodyguard Xin Zhao. Meanwhile, Bilgewater takes not, so they've each got a tank. And it's going to probably be a more fed Nautilus than Leona, since Naut's going top, Leona's support. Well, then again, Quinn can be a bit tanky. Quinn can certainly be played tanky. And Xin, is a bit bruiserish. So I think we're still seeing that Demacian identity of a hard engage, tanky, with ADCs and mages tossing damage into the mess. Not is going to be interesting for Bilgewater, though, giving them some ability to yoink those squishies. Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting match, especially with both of them running double ADC. Not a strategy that one often sees in factions. I think one associates it typically with Piltover, which is like ADC town. All the ADCs are on Piltover. Jungle Graves. Now, Demacia is potentially going to have a lot more ganking power early. Xin Zhao is a pretty fierce early ganker, whereas Graves doesn't really bring a lot of his own CC to the party. Actually, well, CC, I guess they got Nautilus, they got Nami. I don't know. This is a very interesting matchup. It's almost blasphemous having a double ADC Demacia, right? Because it's not quite as all in. It's a little more risky, I suppose I would say. In the sense that they're not guaranteed to win on tankiness, which can be a recipe for winning on its own. I heard someone recently remarking that if you're looking at two teams and you're trying to decide which team has a better team fight, for example, to decide whether you should split push or not, just count the tanks, and the side with the most tanks is probably the winner. Let's see, have Demacia and Bilgewater ever gone head-to-head in an arc? I don't think that they have. Nyroth, no. Lines in the Sand, no. Black Winter, no. Insurrection, no. Well, Divinity, no. Okay, yeah, they have not. And here we go. Let's see how this plays out. Man, Bilgewater has some. There's some faction legends on each side. We've seen some old school players coming out of the woodwork today. We got Hui for it, or Forest. That was the old debate, which one it was. And of course, Quan and Rax. In a previous match, it was Piltover Zone. We had C Drive Blitzcrank, random nom Twitch, brought back some memories. Mostly painful ones since I was... Actually, no, mostly positive ones. I was actually on Zon and Hextech. I joined them because they were the smallest, and we were all worried that Zon wouldn't be viable. Its roster was too small, and we just figured, hey, this is like a weird little faction. They're going to have to play Twitch ADC, which at the time, Twitch was considered kind of a troll pick. And we're like, man, there were serious conversations about, I don't know, what if, like, because it was Zon's introduction too, what if people just play on Zon and they hate Zon and they just give up and they're sad? That'll be unfortunate. That particular fear did not prove to be well founded. Let's see, story-wise, well, where can I go with this? So Demacia and Bilgewater are definitely adversarial. There was an attempt by Demacia to court Bilgewater, even though it had long been in the Noxian sphere of influence. But during Nyroth and Bilgewater's rise to power, Noxus made sure that there would be bad blood between them for a long time by getting Nami's support for a bit of... Noxian savagery, shall we say. And Bilgewater, while, you know, power in its own right, has definitely fallen more into the Noxian orbit. But it should be stressed, they're fairly independent. With Nyroth, they really became a serious faction as opposed to just kind of a, you know, token, smaller power. They basically run the foreign affairs of Nyroth right now. One of the big successes for Bilgewater has been saving the Marian Atlanteans by forging a new moonstone through an alliance with the Lunari. Meanwhile, Demacia, let's see, they came out swinging early on in factions. Gained the patronage of an ocean spirit named Ceruleana. Arguably should have heeded Ionia's warnings about using divine power to enforce Demacian order, because of course the universe demands balance, as the Ionians well know, and chaos violently reasserted itself with the Void War. Demacia got pounded pretty bad in Hextech Revolution by Zon after they thought they were in the clear because Noxus was sort of in ruins from the Void War. But Demacia has picked itself back up and remains, of course, a founding member of the League and a major power. So that's one way to characterize this lore-wise. We've got the old power, Demacia, one of the founding members of the League, going up against kind of an upstart, Bilgewater. We've got the land of paladins and priests and order against a bunch of pirates and whatever Fizz is. Kind of a loose maritime confederation with a vaguely mercantile attitude. And Quinn escapes from a little bit of early aggression. Okay, now I've got all those pictures sorted out. Brief pause just for Factions Tradition, of course. So now we got this MF Nami lane. Definitely a fearsome poke lane that has done very well for Bilgewater in the past. Almost takes down Vayne. And first blood goes to Fizz. The kill on Lux. Yeah, my ability to cast play-by-play is compromised by the fact that I don't know how to play this game. Top there, Nautilus managed to get into melee range with Quinn, and while Quinn is a bit tankier than many sort of ranged damage dealers, marksman, to use the sanctioned term, she is still certainly a ranged champion, and when a melee champion manages to close with a ranged champion in lane, it can often mean a kill. Well, while Nautilus plods his way back to lane, Quinn's trying to catch up on some CS. Demacia's actually out CSing in bot lane, despite the poke. But now Nami's coming back. Leona goes in onto MF, but Bilgewater stays cool, doesn't burn any summoners. Just notes that Vayne was not really in range, and so just plays it cool. Vayne gets a few hits onto Nami there. And now, again, we have a melee versus ranged matchup with Bilgewater having the melee. And in the jungle as well, we actually have a lot of these melee ranged matchups, don't we? I think every lane except except bot, if you're counting jungle as a lane. Zin's going to try to save Quinn from the skank, and does so, turns it around, and takes down Graves. That is the first kill for Demacia here. Probably does a lot to bolster their morale. Another initiation. This time, Vayne is closer. And I think they're gonna... No, they don't quite get MF. But she's very low. Of course, so is Vayne. Finished off by that dot. Yeah, Nami MF, like I said, definitely a synergistic poke lane. Looks like Bilgewater's posturing for Dragon. Nope, they've backed. Fizz running back down. Lux does get a bit ahead in CS. Leona goes in again. And wow, the return fire onto the Vayne forces her to back off. You know, more scrapping in mid lane. Here we go. I think Demacia's got this one. Now Leona needs to get away. She doesn't have much disengaged. Demacians do not retreat. She fits in with the Demacian roster quite nicely. Some talk about having a Targon roster. It would still be a little bit old school, close to SI hipster though, in that they do not have an ADC. Zen tries to grab Fizz, but Fizz troll pulls away. Leona is super low, decides to go down swinging. Now I think Bilge is moving in on drag. They find the Xin there, all alone. And that sure sounds like a drag to me, yep. Shyvana, please. Bilgewater's doing a good job of leveraging its early game advantages. Wants to build up enough of a lead that it can overcome Demacia's probably greater team fight. Although, I don't know, I mean, they do have the MF ulti is pretty serious. For the most part, though, I do think Demacia retains its trademark team fight advantage here. They spot, Bilgewater spots that Xin Zhao coming up. Leona goes in again, but just by herself, kind of spooks Bilgewater a little bit perhaps, but they return fire and whittle her down. And Bilgewater converges very nicely onto that Xin. That's our blue buff. What was the Dyrus quote? It's like, you can't let them take your buffs, take your ice cream. It's like you wouldn't let someone just walk in your house, open your freezer, and start eating your ice cream, right? So why let them take your buffs? Nice play by Fizz, dodging the harass and fearlessly going all in. But Lux's barrier comes up, and a little bit of backup from Quinn and Valor. Still a kill for Fizz though. That Fizz dot. And this is why everyone hates Fizz. I'm sorry, I should maintain a more unbiased attitude. I hate Fizz. Well played, though. Both supports throw their ultimates, but I think there's a little better coordination from Demacia there. And that's a double kill that's going to really help Vayne get back into the game. Although I will point out that Vayne and Leona, props to both of them for their CS. Their CS, because Leona has a Targon's, of course. And, well, looks like, once again, ranged champion gets caught by a melee champion, and predictable results. I think a lot of this game is going to be determined by the backline dives. Zen can certainly operate that way, but Fizz is quite terrifying when well played for his ability to pillage the backline. That's a fearsome Nautilus. A heroic flanking maneuver by Quinn and Valor to help out Leona. Doesn't quite do it. And now we've Vayne also attempting a save, taken down by the MF ulti. And there's another ulti, this time from Nami. Nice series of plays by Bilgewater, taking advantage of Demacians being split up in space and in time. It's an easy mistake to make, especially when you valiantly want to save your teammates, but exploiting it can yield quite an advantage, and Bilgewater just did that. In contrast, here we have a Demacian team up onto Nautilus, which finally brings the Titan of the Depths down. Lux is like, Demacia, and then Fizz is like, poke. Nice try, Sailor Moon. Now, wow, that double up. Xin is looking to avenge the turret. Doesn't quite get it, but does bring them both low. Well, if only they had Karthus. It's funny thing about seeing Shadow Owls getting played. A lot of times, like in solo queue, I'll play and I'm like, I'll make a bad play and they end up low, and I'm like, well, if we had a Karthus on our team, that would have been a great play. And with Shadow Owls, you actually do have Karthus on your team sometimes. Always surprises me. And then you get to pretend it was all planned. Nautilus is going to claim this tower here. And we're getting about a pretty substantial gold lead for Bilgewater. It's about to get more substantial. About a 20% gold lead for Bilgewater. That's a very serious gold lead. Nice little Fizz Graves team up there. Fireball! Oh, Quinn assassinating MF. Nicely played, although I think she's going to die for it. But that means Bilgewater is now down their primary, at least, ADC. And now Not is there. I think he's taking a calculated risk, but may have miscalculated. This is so much death, to quote Riven. Ultimately a success for Bilgewater, though. Nautilus was correct in his risk. Good good catch by Quinn. But Bilgewater managed to exploit the fact that the rest of Demacia was a bit further back, and so they couldn't more immediately capitalize on Bilgewater having just lost their primary ADC. Remains to be seen whether that's how Quinn's going to play. I have heard Quinn often described as an assassin, and perhaps their plan is to use Vayne for their backline deeps and then try to have Quinn flank around, take out that MF. That was a nice takedown, but it was retaliated against, and now Demacia is converging. But they're split, and oh, here's MF in a very vulnerable position. Lux is going after her. Leona dashes onto her end. They bring her down. Now Lux is trying to chase down this Graves, and I think we'll get him. Let's find out. Not quite. That true Grave. Now you see we're starting to work our way towards more proper team fights, and that's what I'm really curious to see here. I'm really curious to see what the 5v5 team fight looks like. I think Demacia's been avoiding creating such a fight, though, because of the gold gap, the kill gap. Well, I mean, they only see the kill gap, right? And they're saying 22 versus 12. The gold gap is actually narrowed somewhat. The thing is, even if you believe that your comp is going to be superior, or that you're going to be able to outplay them in a team fight, if there's a 10k gold gap, that can really change the calculations. Like if they're a mage or super fed and will just kill your tanks instantly, then you don't actually have a front line. Again, we're seeing a bit of a split fight, and this could be very serious if that Graves takes down that Vayne. Now Demacia's in serious trouble. They cannot 5v5. And that's exactly when Nautilus chooses to use his ult, pin down this Zen, who's going to at least try to go for the Nami, doesn't get it. And now there's this cleanup. That was a nice catch by Graves. And if you look at the goal lead now, yeah, essentially it's not that much different. And now Quinn's going to see if she can replicate. Nope. And a nice bit of spooky ghosts from Nami. Guarantees that she won't be able to clean that up. Quinn's... Okay, I thought Quinn was about to dive in there. Yeah, Quinn's mobility, it really adds a new element to Demacia. That not extraordinarily tanky. You probably need a Vayne to whittle that guy down. Bilgewater dodges the Lux ult. Now Demacia's grouping up here. I'm not sure if I think they're gonna go for this, but they don't have Vayne. who is split pushing. So I think they're just trying to create pressure for Vayne to split push. Gotta watch out for that. This does not have his ulti. He does. They've got to be very careful. Demacia does not have a lot of disengage. Quinn very nearly brings down Graves. Meanwhile, they send Fizz, who should be able to take care of Vayne bot. Leona sacrificed herself to save Lux. And that amazingly low cooldown ability, not quite low cooldown, or not quite enough. Good dodge. And wow, that was closer than I would have expected it to be between an assassin and an ADC. And does bring down the MF with the dot. Significant. I think that'll end the push for sure. But now that gold lead's looking a lot more like 10k. Thornmail, an excellent purchase. I am a little bit surprised we aren't seeing more Thornmail. I guess Not is working towards one. Just no one else has one. See, I don't know. I feel like if you're a tank here, you just want that Thornmail with all these ADCs running around. Like, that'll be a good item for Leona, I suspect. Take a look at the vision situation here. Overall, in Bilgewater's favor, which fits with how they have control over the map. Whoa! Living dangerously there, Quinn and Valor. Fizz also living dangerously, and he pulls it off. Manages to just chunk down Vayne from nothing, or to nothing, from full. Leona's gonna have to burn an ult to try to escape. See, the thing is, like, Demacia might have a shot in a big team fight, although that's becoming questionable with this gold difference. But in these little small skirmishes, it's unquestionable that Bilgewater has more assassination potential, especially with this gold difference. Demacia's really got to be careful about getting caught like that, which is easier said than done because they're trying to maintain some sort of map presence. It was a nice pickup, and wow, that that Fizz ult took like half of her HP off. Zin's leading on a chase. Demacia's trying to come in and engage, force a fight, or rather, a fight was forced by Zin getting chased. Zin makes it out, and yeah, it's now an over 10k gold lead. So I think Demacia is going to need not just a competent team fight, they're going to need a pick-off and a competent team fight. And that's tough, because Bilgewater's got the ward advantage here, so it's going to be a lot easier for Bilgewater to catch people. We got a Bilgewater teleport coming in. Oh, but now Demacia is, so they got their pick off on Graves. Now they're converging onto Nautilus, trying to save that Lux, because if Lux goes down, then this is a lot more neutral. Lux survives. Bilgewater's moving to save Nautilus, but I think he's going down, and he is. Demacia has an advantage here that may not return. Quinn's going to try to increase that further with MF and does not. situation is going to be a little more balanced. And there goes Demacia in mid, and I think that window of opportunity is closed for them. Good follow-up by Bilgewater. They use that ward advantage. They didn't rush in to try to save Nautilus when he was getting jumped on. They waited a little bit and caught people in the aftermath. Or diving their tower, as the case may be. But that misfortune is truly a misfortune for Demacia. She is deadly. It's the point that you're going to need like a tank and an assassin to kill her. Well, in fairness, here is a tank and an assassin. Let's see if that's sufficient. Nope, because F has her trusty Nami there to protect her. We're now looking at a 12k gold lead for Bilgewater. Although in fairness, that's quote unquote only about a 10% difference. I'm sorry, well, it's more like 20 because around 50. Yeah, 20% gold difference is pretty substantial. Quinn's going for another assassination here. She's a bit low though, which, yeah, I think if she'd been at full health, she might have pulled that off. So Bilgewater's continuing to very, very competently extend its advantage. Look at that damage. Terrible, terrible damages, I believe is what that's called. Hey, look at that heal. Well, it's because Emma doesn't have a lot of HP. Yeah, Demacia is going to have to repeat what it did earlier. It's going to have to get a nice pick off of one or probably two people, and then it's going to have to force a 5v3 over a critical objective, and that's going to be tough with Bilgewater's map control continuing to increase. Fewer and fewer dark corners for Demacia to jump out of. Goes in on Soda, who then lands a devastating ultimate. Trying to kill MF, but she just won't go down, and finally she does, but at the cost of the entire team. Well played, well played. Bilgewater really grabbed that early game advantage and pushed it forward. And wow, we continue to be on time. It is 4 o'clock, which is the scheduled time for, well, it's 4:06, for the third match of the day. Well played, well played. I'm waiting for the details to load here. See, interesting thing happened there. I don't believe there was really ever a 5v5 team fight. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't... Yeah, no, there really wasn't. There was never really a thing where they both approached each other in formation and fought 5v5. And I believe... Let me make sure that someone submitted the results from that one. Yeah, coming up next we have the third match which is Ionia versus Shurima. Ooh, that's a... Yeah, this is sort of that one is a summoner killed in suspicious circumstances in Shurima. Ionia is demanding a league inquiry, and further alleges that this summoner, who was a frequent associate of Akali and other members of the King Co, may have been up to no good himself. Alright, I'm going to set up the new match of factions. Ionia v Shurima. Gonna check, see if we have the results from last match. We don't yet. Alright, well, I'll have the stream back up momentarily.